Now, Melbourne in Australia is back in lockdown because of a spike in COVID cases. In the past 24 hours, it's recorded almost 200 of them. That's its highest recorded daily total. So for the next 6 weeks, the 5 million people who live in Melbourne can only leave their homes for essential purposes. That means work, school, food shopping and caregiving. Here's Victoria's State Premier.
Stay at home means just that. Not stay at your holiday home, not stay at your second home. Your principal place of residence is where you must be, except for the 4 reasons to leave your home. This is, I know, further than we went last time, but we are in many respects in a more precarious, challenging and potentially tragic position now than we were some months ago.
I wanted to show you this video from just before the lockdown came into effect. So this is just ahead of midnight in Melbourne. You can see a huge queue at this Costco supermarket as people try to stock up. We also know there are stricter rules in place for localised outbreaks. This apartment block is one of 9 where residents are banned from leaving. One health official justified the move, calling the building vertical cruise ships, but residents say they weren't given enough notice before the lockdown came into effect and they're struggling to get food delivered. Here's one woman describing her experience.
A lot of people are saying, oh, come on, how did you not have anything, in your pantries and this and that? Let's not forget, the people living in these towers are vulnerable. We are, some of us live paycheck to paycheck, so we can't go out and do a massive shop or stock up on pantry items like everyone else can. So, it's not really for anyone to judge, our shopping schedule, for example. So if we're being locked down, our human rights our basic human rights are being stripped from us.
Now, this lockdown only affects Melbourne and one other area, but the whole of the state of Victoria has been sealed off from its neighbours. Its border with New South Wales is shut for the first time since the Spanish flu. That's over 100 years ago. That means 55 ground crossings, 4 major highways, 33 bridges and 2 waterways are all being monitored by police, troops and drones. South Australia has also closed its border. Only those deemed essential workers are being allowed to come in from Victoria, and if they do, they'll have to quarantine for 14 days. Now, the context here is that Australia has done relatively well in restricting the virus. It has more than 8,500 cases, just over 100 people have died, and almost all the new cases now are in Victoria. You can see from this graph that new cases are accelerating and in fact are past their previous peak in March. Also a concern is that 90% of cases are coming from within the community. Initially, most cases were from travellers arriving from overseas, not anymore. It's thought the surge in this case is connected to breaches of hotel quarantines. Now, this next bit of information is very important. More than 20,000 people have gone through a 14-day isolation in hotels in Victoria after arriving in the state. This was one of the hotels in question. One investigation points to the virus spreading from security guards working at them to those guards' families. We've also seen several international reports, like this one in the Times in London, suggesting some security contractors were having sex with guests and that families were allowed to go between rooms, though we're not able to confirm those claims. Other experts argue that actually COVID-19 was already in the community. We've talked before, an outside source, about how meat processing plants had been infection hotspots elsewhere in the world. This Guardian reports that an abattoir in West Melbourne was linked to more than 100 cases, and that was all the way back in May. Well, whatever the reasons, case numbers are going up, and so is the pressure on the state government. Look at this ABC article. It's scathing. It says, unlike other political scandals, the failures of quarantine are directly affecting hundreds of thousands of people, more than 310,000 to be precise. But the state premier has a different analysis.
I think a sense of complacency has crept into us as we let our frustrations get the better of us. I think that each of us knows someone who has not been following the rules as well as they should have. I think each of us know that we've got no choice but to take these very, very difficult steps.
Next, let me play the thoughts of the BBC's Australia correspondent, Shaima Khalil.
He was referring to family members, for example, who weren't feeling well, who were testing for COVID-19 and hadn't waited for the results and socialized with a large number of people only to come back positive and spread the virus. So I think it's a reminder really for the rest of the country who has so far fared better than many other countries around the world, that this could happen anywhere else if people are not careful.